They're often referred to as the unsung heroes of World War II, the Ghost Army.
Their mission that was kept secret for decades. Nikki Burdine shows us how the soldiers helped save thousands of lives.
It sounds like something that belongs on the set of a movie.
Their mission was deception, and to carry it out, they used inflatable tanks and sound effects and illusion, impersonation, right on the battlefields of Europe.
Everything they did was to deceive the enemy while giving actual units time to move around.
Tanks crossing a small bridge.
They're known as the Ghost Army, a unit with about 1,100 soldiers that conducted 22 different deception missions, starting right after D-Day until the end of the war.
Deception is a great military tool. If you can fool the enemy about your intentions, about your location, if you can manipulate them to do what you want them to do, it's to your advantage. It can create surprise and help you out. So the Ghost Army, their mission was to impersonate other much larger American units.
These combat Karn artists had one goal: to save lives. But they did this with a bit of creativity.
So they had inflatable tanks and trucks and artillery and jeeps and inflatable spotter planes and anything. So they could set up a huge, presentation, if you will, on the battlefield.
They used sound deception.
They had sound trucks. These were half tracks with 500-pound speakers mounted on top that could play sounds that could go as far as 15 miles.
Radio deception.
So the enemy's listening in on the radio, and so you're sending phony radio messages and tying in with real radio networks.
And even special effects.
That involved physically impersonating the units that they're pretending to be. So they're going to put on phony shoulder patches to make it seem like they're in the 75th Infantry Division, let's say. They're going to set up fake headquarters, and they're going to have one of the guys be a fake general. I mean, I know it sounds made up, but this really happened and happened multiple times.
It sounds somewhat whimsical, but there were very real consequences.
And if you're going to understand the Ghost Army story, you want to enjoy the Hollywood aspects of it, the make-believe, the pretend, but you want to sober up pretty quickly to realize that there are people who are buried in cemeteries in Europe and in the United States who gave their lives to carry out this mission.
Rick Beyer runs the Ghost Army Legacy Project. His mission is to tell their stories.
It was all kept secret for 50 years or so after the war. This was a secret, and I got to tell you, there's still a lot of people who don't know very much about it at all.
These soldiers trained right here in Tennessee at Camp Forest. Today, there are just 3 living members of the Ghost Army left, and this year they were finally honored at the Capitol, 75 years after they served. Although it's impossible to know exactly how many lives these men saved, their impact is clear.
There have been estimates that maybe 15 to 30,000 lives, and there's no way to know, right? Is that accurate? I met a guy once who was a tanker under Patton, and he had never heard of this unit. He said, I think this unit might have saved my life. And because he'd been in one of the places where they operated. And that to me was really meaningful, because you can talk numbers and say thousands here, thousands there. But here was one guy, and he was showing me pictures of his children and grandchildren and saying, well, maybe they wouldn't even have been born if it hadn't been for this unit.
What amazing, amazing story that is.
Glad to see them being recognized.
Absolutely.